Within your baby's first year of life, their brain will double in size and form over 1 million neural connections every second. That makes this the single most critical window for neurological development that your child will ever have. And yet, most parents are told just to track milestones. First we smile, then we roll, then we start crawling, those first steps. And if something ever feels off, the answer is almost always the same: let's wait and see, or don't worry, they'll just grow out of it. But what if your baby's technically hitting those milestones, but then you notice the nervous system is struggling underneath, whether it be colic or reflux or sleeplessness? What if that foundation is cracked, but nobody is checking it? And that's what we want to talk about today, because the baby's first year is extremely important, and it's so much more than just a checklist or those developmental milestones. And here's something that most parents don't realize: a baby can technically pass every developmental screening that they have, and underlying neurological dysfunction can still impact their health, their learning, and their behavior for years to come. The conventional model checks whether the baby can roll at 6 months, but it doesn't check whether that roll is symmetrical, whether it's coordinated, or whether it's built on proper foundational development. And we see it all the time with patients that come into our office. They say the same thing, that they knew something was off, but everybody told me to just wait it out and see what happens. And we hear it every single week. And that's why it's so important, because the nervous system is still developing after birth. We like to think that babies develop completely in utero, but a lot of times those parasympathetics and sometimes a little bit of the sympathetics are still continuing that development, which is why skin to skin contact is so important. And all the things that we do that we want to track from a development standpoint are on track. Our baby's nervous systems are like air traffic controllers. During the first year, the baby's brain has an extraordinary ability to form new pathways and adapt to the environment, called neuroplasticity. And that same neuroplasticity that makes rapid development possible also makes the nervous system uniquely vulnerable to stress. And that's what we talk about with subluxation. Neurological interference from prenatal stress or birth trauma or chemicals can develop early and create lasting patterns of dysfunction. And this is what leads to basically dysautonomia, which is an imbalance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. Now, we call those the gas pedal and the brake pedal in the body: fight or flight, rest, digest, and restore. It can throw everything off balance. And when that foundation becomes chronically stressed, especially when there's all that neuroplasticity and development going on, every milestone that follows is built on top of that shaky ground. Now, every milestone is actually a neurological test. And that's what we see with these charts and growth charts and the motor development skills and all those things. That's the baby's ability to grow and have that proper development that our brains are wired to do automatically. The baby's ability to latch and feed is that first major neurological assessment. It requires multiple cranial nerves and precise timing between the nervous system and the muscles and that autonomic nervous system. We don't come out of the womb knowing and thinking this is how we eat. It's all on autopilot at that point in time. And then we see head control at 8 to 12 weeks, and that tells us how that cervical spine and those deep neck muscles are developing. Then we hit those sleep regressions. That 4 month sleep regression, it's not just a regression, it's evidence of that neurological reorganization that we all go through. And that's why crawling is one of the most important neurological significant milestones. It stimulates balanced development of the brain's hemispheres. It builds the foundation for walking and especially reading. Babies who skip crawling or crawl asymmetrically, when they have that scoot off to the side, or if they're just going backwards, they often struggle later with learning, coordination, balance, that behavioral regulation, because of that foundation being offset. Now, the sequence of development matters far more than the timing and the speed. A lot of times we read in books or at the pediatrician charts that timing is the most important. They should be doing this by this month, but that's not exactly the same for every kid. We want to see the order, which shows that development of the nervous system and that neurological regulation is following the developmental path that we are all created within us. And that's where the perfect storm can disrupt that development. The perfect storm, which is what we call, describes the multiple stressors that stack up, a combination of things that overwhelm the baby's nervous system, and it can start before birth. We talk to our patients all the time about prenatal stress and chronic stress during pregnancy that can directly affect fetal brain development. We see in research that stress in the prenatal period has more increases rates of colic and prenatal conditions and postnatal conditions with the newborns. We also see birth interventions like Pitocin and forceps, vacuum extraction, C section, a lot of the things that cause distension through the cervical spine that can create significant pressure on the baby's head, on their neck, on their cervical spine, and especially that nervous system. And then after birth, we see the disrupted sleep, the overstimulation, sometimes the ear infections or the antibiotic use. We see those feeding challenges with tongue ties and all those kind of things that pile on even more stress that adds layer after layer and pushes that nervous system into that sympathetic gas pedal fight or flight dominance. They should be calm and regulated. Babies should be eating, sleeping, and pooping. They should be in that parasympathetic state so that they can get the rest and the restoration of the nervous system to continue that growth and development. Now, understanding all this, we like to educate. It's not about guilt. It's about recognizing why some babies struggle more and how you can help those kids. That's why wait and see misses the window. Conventional pediatric care checks milestones and whether they happen within a broad time range, not how well the nervous system is actually functioning on a day to day basis. And that's why babies pass screenings all the time while they're compensating through different tension patterns, asymmetrical movement, skip developmental stages. They're doing a lot of things because our body's adapting around that dysregulation, which causes it basically to take longer to unfold when we do see it. When parents express concerns about feeding and sleep and excessive crying, they're often told that these are normal variations or just part of having a baby. And that approach misses the critical window when neuroplasticity is at its peak. And gentle support can be the most profound impact when they're young like that. The baby, the brand new baby, the newborn is the most neuroplastic individual because they're experiencing Earth and the environment for the first time. And what conventional care typically overlooks is the assessment of that stress being stuck on the system, that subluxation and that dysautonomia, and that interference and imbalance that doesn't show up on standard tests. Instincts matter. We like to think that we know better than somebody that isn't with our kid all the time. And I would especially trust that. Trust the mom and dad gut because you see the baby on a regular basis. You know what feels normal and abnormal, even if it's your first kid. So trust that and seek out care that, listens to you and goes about that. At our offices here, we use advanced insight scanning technology to objectively measure the baby's nervous system function. And then we look at those gentle, non invasive scans where we measure the heart rate variability, we measure muscle tension, we measure temperature regulation. And then based on that, we create a care plan to get that regulation of the nervous system at its peak. We use adjustments for infants that are incredibly gentle. It's not like what you see on YouTube. Often, no more pressure than you'd use to check for the ripeness of a tomato. And our care can adapt. We use different techniques to each developmental phase, whether it's early weeks that we focus on regulation and feeding. Later months, we support motor development and sensory processing, that social interaction. And we do lots of different techniques based on where that system's at and the stress that's been applied in certain areas. So rather than waiting for problems to develop, we take that proactive approach. Instead of just waiting and seeing, or they'll grow out of it, we support optimal function from the very beginning because that's what our bodies are designed to do is to thrive and to develop and to go through so that we can get to the future and get that cognitive thought and have all that fun and have all those activities. Many families see remarkable improvements in feeding and sleeping in newborns and development when subluxation is addressed early. Your baby's first year represents the greatest opportunity you'll ever have to positively influence that neurological development and long term health. Because, like I said, neuroplasticity is at its peak. We all have it, me and you alike, as parents, but it diminishes over time as we create those hardwired connections. And that's why babies are so much fun because we can see that change significantly and quickly the sooner we see them. If you sense something isn't right with your baby's feeding or sleeping or development or regulation, trust those instincts. You don't have to wait and see. Click the link in our bio, DM us, comment below, and we can get contacted with you. Your baby isn't just learning to eat, sleep, and move, they're building that neurological foundation for their entire life. So let's make sure that foundation is strong.